Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another reaction video. Last time when we were checking on a fallen cow, we were reacting to the lion's agenda. And today we're going to be reacting to, if Rogal returns, he might be the strongest Primarch in Warhammer 40k. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, just hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good things. And I will leave the original video in the link in the description down below. And to be honest, I really feel like maybe Rogal Dorn will be the next Primarch. I mean, Putarabo's back. We see him in his Michael Bay form, and I would say he looks fucking awesome. But for now, we just have to wait and see. So today, we're going to be reacting to the cow, and I hope you will enjoy it.
There are a ton of Primarch agendas out there.
Facts.
For example, Lionel Johnson being one of the strongest base Primarchs.
Which we
Fulcrum,
reacted
if he laid
to.
off the ketamine and actually locked in for once, he'd be a top 5 Primarch. Or the idea that Lorgar is a straight up bum compared to his brothers. But today, as you probably read the title of this video, I'm going to be pushing one thing: the Rogal Dorn agenda. Now I know what some of you are probably thinking. Dorn? The wall guy? The fortification merchant? The human embodiment of dry wall? Yeah, that guy. And I'm here to say that if Dorn did indeed return, he might be one of the strongest Primarchs in the current setting.
Now, I don't know if this is either a fan or someone actually draw it in the game workshop, which if they are, they might have spoiled our appearance of Rogal Dorn, but it looks like a fan arc, so I'm not gonna take much accountability. But I feel like Rogal Dorn would be a very, very valuable asset in Warhammer 40k, especially what's going on now. Now, I don't want to go too deep into why that is, so I want the cow to give his agenda with the most artistic Primarch of all time, who will always sleep with his uncle's blankie. And that's true. So it goes to show you, it doesn't matter how masculine you are, there's always a soft side within you.
We're talking about a Primarch with one of the few confirmed Primarch kills, a man who's gone toe-to-toe with the Demon Primarch and survived, and made even Khorne want a slice of that cake. By the end of this video, you're either going to fully embrace the Dorn agenda, or may find yourself trapped inside your house besieged. So let's stop playing around and jump straight into the cow hole. Because I'm dead serious about my Boogie's agenda. It's time to fortify my argument and push the Rogal Dorn agenda.
It's time. The Chowdor Dorn agenda.
So before I start pushing this, as always, what exactly is an agenda? In power scaling, an agenda is basically when someone picks their favorite character and builds the strongest possible case for them using feats, statements, and lore.
Yeah, there's a lot of good examples for that. JJK, for example, the One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, Ben 10, there's a huge agenda of that. Superman, there's so many agendas to show that this character is I'm gonna win everything. And here's the meme that shows that, nah, I'm winning. But yeah, sometimes genders can be just bring out of context, and there are some who bring into context to show why they are the best. And most of the time, they will bring people without any context or just statements. They just pull out and remake them into their own, let's say, their own liking, so that they feel more confident. So yeah.
Well, conveniently not focusing too hard on their anti-feats. Sometimes agendas are complete nonsense. They're pure cope and delusion of the highest order.
Like I said,
sometimes they're actually backed by some pretty scary evidence. And let me tell you guys, the Rogal Dorn agenda has the evidence and excerpts to back it all up. That when you stack Dorn up against the other Primarchs, both Loyalist and Traitor, there is a very real argument that he may actually belong at the top of the Primarch power rankings.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's all coming
together.
Oh.
So let's begin by discussing the various statements we have on Papa Dorn that upscale him tremendously. First off, Rogal Dorn is said by Horus in The End and the Death to be the finest martial exponent that he has ever known. This would mean that Dorn is the ultimate living embodiment of martial skill in Horus's eyes. And Horus has seen all of his brothers in action and seems to be placing Dorn even above himself. And don't forget, folks, Horus has direct statements comparing him to the lion in martial skill. So right off the bat, we have a statement that Rogal Dorn, admitted by Horus, is one of the finest fighters among the Primarchs. Then we have Dorn's own thoughts on facing his traitorous brothers in the short.
Oh my god, look at the faces. This is how people feels like in Call of Duty. This is how people feels like when they're seeing when there's a new announcement of a video game
Story,
and
the
just
Lightning
Fulgrim.
Tower. What was he afraid of? Who was he afraid of? Angron? Not him. Dorn would split his head without compunction if they came face to face. Lorgar?
Oh shit,
Magnus?
really?
There had always been a fetid whiff of sorcery about those two, but Dorn felt nothing towards them he could describe as fear. Fulgrim? No. The Phoenician was a singular foe, but not an object of terror. Perturabo? Well now, their rivalry was old, the spiteful scrappings of two brothers who fought for a father's attention. No, he was not afraid of Perturabo. So here in this short story, we see that Rogal Dorn is not afraid to face Perturabo, Fulgrim, Lorgar, Magnus, or Angron. Even going as far to say that he would split Angron's head if they ever came face to face, implying that Dorn thinks he could beat Angron in a duel. Then we have this statement from Malcador in the book The Lost and the Damned, implying that Rogal Dorn is the master of the physical world. Was it? Said Malcador softly. Very well. Let us take you, Dorn. You were made to command the material realm. Nothing in this world is beyond your grasp. This is most likely in regard to Rogal Dorn's warp power, which allows him to suppress the warp with his willpower alone. And this statement seems to add to that by Malcador suggesting that Dorn can master any concept of the material universe. But that's not the only glazing statement he has, as most recently in the book Ashes of the Imperium, he has a statement from Corswain comparing him to both Leman Russ and Lionel Johnson, two of the strongest base Primarchs. He stole a glance at Dorn as he withdrew again. This was a gathering of equals in all important respects. If any of them had come into serious conflict with the others, it would have been hard to pick a winner. And yet for all the trials both his own liege and Russ had endured, Dorn bore the scars of the war more deeply.
So what we're getting at is that Dorn is a very good combatant on, face-to-face, combo style. He was compared to the Lion and Leman Russ. And we also get a statement from Malcador, where it was one of the most powerful psychers during the time of the Horus Heresy, say that he commands the material realm, basically our normal universe, bringing things into order. As we know, the warp is just straight bullshit. Anything can happen, anything cannot happen, anything and anywhere, any place, at any time is gonna happen. And Dorn is like, no, we need law, we need order, and just, silence them, which is very fascinating. Now, mind that he's not a blank. That's the one thing that people always compare or make the mistake that he is a blank. He's not a blank. What he is just a guy who just wants things to keep in order, and that is something that Chaos do not like.
So this statement is directly comparing Rogal Dorn to both Lionel Johnson and Leman Russ, two Primarchs who are consistently considered among the strongest of
I'm also a master of combos.
Lion is regularly described as one of the greatest duelists and one of the fastest as well, due to feats like blitzing the future sight of Conrad Kurz, and in the modern setting of 40k, he has even managed to defeat a demon Primarch, Angron, during the Arc of Omens. While on the other hand, Leman Russ fought the lion to a standstill for 3 straight days in the book The Great Wolf, has defeated Magnus the Red during the burning of Prospero, even if Magnus wasn't at his full strength, and with the help of the Dionysian spear, managed to wound post-Molech Horus during the book Wolfsbane. Now, Russ is absolutely a context man. Half of his scaling comes with a giant asterisk attached, but even with all of that context, he's undeniably one of the strongest base Primarchs.
He's the brawler,
And here,
if I'm
we of
correct,
course
and the
Wayne
lion
directly
is the
stating
duelist.
that if Dorn, the lion, and Russ all came into serious conflict with each other, he genuinely could not say who would emerge victorious.
So they're like equal.
Yeah, Dorn has some absolutely generational glazing statements on him.
Owen Wilson.
Diabolical, the most dangerous, a beast slayer, a conqueror, the goat of all goats, so that they...
But now let's move on to his 2
I
Primarch
remember
fights
that.
during the Horse Heresy. Because this is where we really start to
Oh,
see
shit.
how powerful he truly is. Starting with his duel against Alfarius. This takes place in
boy,
Praetorian
Alfarius.
of Dorn. And I'm not gonna lie, folks, Alfarius comes off like an absolute silly goose in this duel. Like the man launches a massive invasion of the Sol system, unleashes sleeper cells that kills millions, and then starts preaching to Dorn about the meaning of true victory. Like, imagine I invaded your house with all of my buddies, set fire to your garage, pantry, and bathroom, and then try to convince you that I'm actually on your side and have the secret ingredient to the Krabby Patty. Now, of course, you're not going to believe me.
Yeah, if someone did that to me, I'm gonna fucking shoot you for that. Like, I am gonna kill you and just gonna be rid of you. And plus, the Alpha Legion just has this, like, reputation of being assholes. Like, sneaky little assholes. Which I just don't understand how people would like that, other than they're just assholes themselves. Like, that's the only thing I could think of. And it's just so, like... what's the like purpose in the Horus Heresy? They were like traitors, and then sometimes they'll become loyalists, and sometimes they sabotage both of them sides. And I was like what? And it's so redundant as well. Like, every time something happened, it's because of the Alpha Legion. It isn't because of the Warp. It isn't because of someone else. It was because of the Alpha Legion. And it is so tiring to just keep hearing that shit every time. I am honestly shocked that Zinch hasn't, like, recruited them through, like, you know, the Thousand Sons. I'm surprised that he hasn't, like, have any ownership of them, because they sound perfectly with them. I mean, jeez.
And unfortunately for Alfarius, Dorn doesn't either. But I
Nope.
guess that's just Alfarius for you. Schizophrenic to the very end.
Stop making schizophrenia jokes. They're not funny.
Alex, I'm right here.
I know. Get it?
Stop making schizophrenia jokes. They're not funny.
Hey, look, man. It's my condition. I should be able to have a sense of humor about my condition.
Their fight begins with Dorn and Alfarius tearing through each other's Terminator bodyguards before Alfarius attempts to backstab Dorn. It was a beautiful strike. In all his years of war, Archimus had never seen the like. Its simplicity like a line drawn by a master artisan on bare parchment. It was death and ruin and silence without end. And Storm's teeth met the spear thrust, and reality shrieked. A sheet of silver sparks exploded from the point at which the two weapons met. Alfarius and Dorn stood before each other, and it was as though the universe made space for this meeting of brothers. The two Primarchs then proceed to fight, and they trade blows for quite some time as Alfarius attempts to convince Dorn of true victory. And Alfarius even manages to bait Dorn into an overextended strike, or at least what he thought was one.
I activate my trap card.
He was exactly where he needed to be to turn past Dorn's blow and make another. Last perfect thrust with his spear. Dorn cut. Storm's teeth blurred. Alfarius swayed back, pivoting and sliding a hair's breadth past the screaming edge. And the spear struck home. It rammed through Dorn's armor and into the flesh, and stopped. Dorn stood, unmoved. The spear embedded in his shoulder where he had stepped into to take the blow. His left hand was locked around the spear's haft. For an instant, the two Primarchs were an arm's reach apart, eye to eye. Brother Alpharius began, and Dorn hacked Storm's teeth through Alpharius' arms above the wrists.
They Count Dooku his ass.
Rogal Dorn brought Storm's teeth around. The blade cut down through Alpharius' skull and then tore free in a spray of blood and a detonation of light.
Good, Annie, good.
Kill this bald schizophrenic loser. Eat shit, traitor.
Oh my god. But this is proof that not only Dorn is very, very skilled with a blade, and he will take risk on his body to, to achieve a victory, but he's very resilient. I mean, that is a spear that could one-shot everyone. I mean, I'm talking about if you get stabbed by it, you're dead. That's it. And he managed to take a hit on his shoulder, and it did say that it hit metal and flesh, so it did hit him, but it didn't do nothing. So Dorn just easily, take off the spear, cut both of his arms, and just cut him down instantly. Also, fun fact: apparently, when Primarchs died, they released this big light of their body, which is their soul going back to the warp. That has been probably the belief of it, because Primarch souls are more unique, to say the least. But yeah, that's all I want to say. Now let's just see. Oh my god, not the skibbity damn thing. By the way, how's that going, that legal battle between that and the other station? Because I feel like the Skibidi died, right? Skibidi Toilet just died. I've heard people telling that.
Straight up killing Alpharius without taking any real serious damage in return, as he essentially tanks Alpharius' killing blow just to Count Dooku his ass immediately afterwards. Now, I will admit the two were going relatively even with each other for quite some time, but I would not call this a high diff fight for Dorn. If anything, it leans closer to low to mid diff. The two trade blows for a portion of their duel. Dorn allows himself to be impaled by the pale spear, and then quickly finishes off Alpharius before he can react.
I feel like Dorn was just studying Alpharius, and you know how sometimes fighters will lower down their defenses and skills to understand their enemy, because the enemy just want to show off and always both and gloat on how they are, who they are, and why they're a goat, and things like that. That is very, very useful. Just let them, I'm weaker than you, and then all of a sudden you just kill them instantly. I just feel like Dorn did that. I feel like he hold back for a bit, and when he saw his clean shot, he just took it and no questions were asked.
I could see an argument for high diff, because I know the Alpha Legion fans out there will say, Alpharius wasn't trying to kill Dorn, Cal. He was merely trying to tell him about true victory.
Oh my god, yeah.
I guess, bro. But regardless of how difficult you think it was, Dorn still was able to defeat and kill a fellow Primarch, even going as far as to tank the Pale Spear, which is a Xenos weapon, mind you, that is said to vaporize anything that comes in
right
contact
there, see?
with it. And Dorn just tanks it like an absolute G. Even if Alpharius isn't usually ranked among the absolute top tier of the Primarchs, he is still a Primarch. A being that can move faster than thought, lift hundreds of tons, and casually slaughter space marines. So Rogal Dorn is 1-0. But now we move on to his next major Primarch fight. And this one is significantly more controversial. It's his duel against Demon Primarch Fulgrim in the book Saturn. And this fight is just so weird, guys. Because depending on how you interpret Fulgrim's personality, his motivations, and later Codex statements, this duel can be either viewed as a massive anti-feat for Fulgrim, or one of the single greatest upscales for Dorn in the entire setting. Their fight occurs after Fulgrim breaches the Saturn IX wall and encounters Dorn, and the two immediately begin to trade blows. But almost instantly, a pattern begins to emerge. Fulgrim launches attack after attack, but Dorn just keeps shutting him down. Dorn's blow knocked the next words out of his mouth. Fulgrim stumbled. Dorn's greatsword tore into his ribs. Fulgrim struck back, but found only shield again. And this kind of becomes the story of their entire fight. Fulgrim monologues and then attacks with speed and skill, but Dorn continuously absorbs, redirects, or blocks nearly everything thrown at him. Dorn blocked into him, broke his guard with his shield, buried his blade in Fulgrim's shoulder meat, then body smashed him across the platform. And the disrespect here is honestly insane. Dorn isn't fighting like he's barely surviving against some superior being. He's fighting, quite frankly, like an unstoppable wall, crushing Fulgrim through sheer attrition. And through it all, Fulgrim is trying to provoke Dorn into some emotional response. But Dorn remained silent throughout their fight, with his only words telling Fulgrim again and again that he's going to kill him. Fulgrim surged and hammered out 9 rapid blows, each one a master kill stroke. Dorn blocked each one. The Phoenician growled and charged 2 steps. Dorn met his first slash with his shield and countered his second with his blade. A third he parried, a fourth he turned aside in a squealing slide of steel that threw off sparks. This is
Now you can see how Dorn is probably one of the most like people who can use a blade like very good. I mean, that's why he was compared to the Lion and Lehman Russ, because they were monsters on using a blade weapon. And you can see that Dorn is not really putting much effort to it. He's just blocking and blocking, which is like, I would say like some like Obi-Wan Kenobi type of play. If you don't know, so Obi-Wan Kenobi can use um a lot of techniques, but the one technique that he used is where he can parry and block his enemy's attacks, and this will allow him to get the upper hand of them. And this is what I'm seeing what Dorn is doing. He's just letting him Fulgrim to just keep attacking, keep doing all this crazy shit while he just block, parry, dodge, and just try to like make him upset. Because the thing about battle is emotions will go off, and it will be your downfall or it will be your success. That is how war is, and most anime fights.
pretty much how their duel goes for 3.5 pages. Fulgrim barely lands any hits, while Dorn continuously pressures and wounds Fulgrim for the duration of their duel. When it finally ends, Fulgrim is viciously wounded. Dorn struck out and severed Fulgrim's left wrist, so the hand was left hanging by a shred of flesh.
Ooh.
Dorn drove the entire length of his blade through Fulgrim's belly. This is basically the end of their fight, as Fulgrim heals himself, starts whining about pain, and then abandons the siege entirely by dramatically teleporting away,
Yeah, fuck this
like
shit,
the
I'm out.
galaxy's pettiest quitter. Now, the reason this fight is debated so heavily is because Fulgrim performs, well, quite strangely. Not only does he lose pretty badly overall, as he barely damages Dorn while receiving cut after cut in return, but he also
There's a
refuses
loser
to
under
use
my
many
butt.
of the abilities we know Demon Primarch Fulgrim possesses. He doesn't use any of his psychic abilities, his flight, or poison in the way we've seen in other fights. Instead, he engages Dorn almost entirely in a straight-up martial contest. And you could make the argument that's because of Fulgrim's personality. Fulgrim
Could be.
is monstrously prideful. He sees himself as perfection incarnate,
With the
especially
Slanesh
when it comes to
ability.
swordsmanship and martial skill. So, there is a legitimate argument that he intentionally chose to fight Dorn fairly, because he wanted to prove his superiority as the better duelist. And if that's your interpretation, then yes, it arguably makes the feat less impressive for Mr. Papa Dorn. But, folks, of course there's a but, there are two codex statements that completely change this power scaling conversation.
Oh.
First, we have this statement from the 3rd edition Horus Heresy Codex, which
Oh,
states,
shit.
as Fulgrim grew ever greater in his patron's regard, his focus became ever less on his legion and more towards the attainment of personal glory, seeking out any whose martial prowess approached his own and humbling them. Now, this is
Oh.
huge because it directly implies that Fulgrim is specifically seeking out opponents who are actually near him in martial skill. so he is not interested in bullying random fodder, and is actively seeking out worthy opponents that are able to give him a challenge. Which means the fact that he is fighting Dorn this seriously at all strongly suggests that Dorn's martial prowess is legitimately relative enough to interest Fulgrim in the first place. But somehow, folks, it gets even crazier. Because then we get this statement from the 10th edition Emperor's Children Codex that says, in the wake of his physical being becoming a vessel for the powers of the warp, Fulgrim's form became nigh indestructible. Despite his virtual immortality, Fulgrim's monstrous pride often ensured that should a foe threaten to best him, he would dramatically leave the battlefield, denying them the satisfaction of besting him in combat. Yeah, that sounds a little too similar to something. Oh yeah, that's exactly what happens in Saturn 9. You genuinely can't make this shit up. In his fight against Dorn, Fulgrim spends the entire duel getting progressively more frustrated, progressively more wounded, and the second the fight starts shifting in Dorn's favor, Fulgrim just leaves. And he doesn't just leave, he does it dramatically. Exactly like the Codex says he does.
Oh my god.
So we have the narrative and Codex material both strongly suggesting that Dorn was legitimately pushing Fulgrim towards defeat.
This is the worst.
That does not necessarily mean Dorn is stronger than Demon Primarch Fulgrim overall, in every conceivable circumstance, since Fulgrim does not use his war powers, immortality, regeneration, and other abilities during the fight. But what it does mean is that in a straight-up fight, Dorn performed so well that Fulgrim, one of the proudest beings in the galaxy, decided that fleeing the battlefield was preferable to risking an outright loss. And for the Rogal Dorn agenda, this is absolutely generational propaganda material. Because let's really think about what Dorn is accomplishing here. Fulgrim is not some random demon prince. This is a demon Primarch. He can move faster than Quicksilver, casually flip tanks with ease, and even his mere presence can overwhelm other Primarchs with his toxic musk. For example, we see this directly with his fight against Rabute Guilliman in Dark Imperium. Guilliman staggered, gasping. Every breath poured more of Fulgrim's lethal perfume into his lungs, a poison so potent that it taxed his superhuman body. He parried and parried again, but he could land no counterstrike and was forced back up the stairs. Fulgrim, at the conclusion of his fight with Guilliman, even manages to mortally wound the Blueberry. Even outside of this single Primarch duel, Fulgrim also defeated Ferrus Manus during the Dropsite Massacre, and in the Reflection Cracked, we saw him use his psychic powers to crush a Titan. But when Dorn fights Fulgrim, he only receives a few wounds, most of which are relatively minor compared to what Fulgrim dealt Guilliman, or the Headless Wonder. That is an absolutely insane difference in overall performance. All of this really does suggest that Dorn may be indeed one of the strongest base Primarchs. If we're talking objectively here, with no bias, the top 5 base Primarchs are usually Magnus the Red, Sanguinius, the Lion, Horus, and either Conrad Kurz or Lehman Russ. And since Dorn has statements comparing him to 2 of the Primarchs in the top 5, has defeated a Demon Primarch and a base Primarch himself, I think the evidence clearly shows that Dorn is at least top 7 or top 8, with the possibility of maybe even being a top 5 base Primarch. Further suggesting that if Dorn were to return in the modern setting, there would be a very real possibility that he could rival or even potentially surpass Lionel Johnson as the strongest current Loyalist Primarch. Now you're probably asking yourself, why do I say this? Cow, didn't the Lion also defeat a Demon Primarch? And not just any Demon Primarch, Angron as well. Well folks, what if I told you that Rogal Dorn is
I know
more
where he's
than
gonna
just
go
a
with
handsome
this.
king? Because it appears that he too also possesses a unique warp power. We briefly touched on it earlier, but now we're going to go deeper into the cow hole. This ability seems to be focused around his willpower. For example, in The End and the Death, he was stuck in an endless desert for centuries. And while he was there, he resisted the corruption of chaos by Khorne, who continuously attempted to convince Dorn to give in to his rage and bloodthirst. But Dorn refused him in the most Dorn way imaginable, saying, "I am Rogal Dorn, Praetorian, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, seven-found son, defiant and unyielding."
He literally just said his job resume.
Yeah, so Dorn is so autistic and so unyielding that Khorne is forced to give up. And this willpower seems
Which
to
is
extend
crazy.
far beyond simply refusing.
I want you to think about this. Khorne, the guy who always won a challenge, the guy who is tempted to do anything possible to get the better person, just gave up. Like, could you imagine that? The guy who wants blood, skulls, just surrendered because he just tired of hearing someone's info every single time. I am Rogal Dorn, Primarch of the... Okay, I forgot. Okay. Damn it. Okay, wait. Ah, damn it, I forgot the Legion now. Shit. Whatever. But it's just funny, really. It just imagine just hearing that all the time. Everybody like, oh, I don't want this shit. Go ahead, shoo, which is pretty funny.
A chaos god, which of
And
course
with it is
is an
badass as
insane
well.
feat all on its own. But it also appears that his willpower is so strong that it seems to actively affect the warp around him. We see this in the book The Solar War. Father, breathed Massac. In his mortal sight, Dorn and the demon were a blur, a giant of shadow and ghostly flesh, and a demigod of war gleaming against the darkness. Cold control poured from Dorn, cracking the flow of the warp, splintering the folding dark as it
Oh, this
spiraled
one.
around him. So yeah, Dorn is shown being able to affect the warp, causing it to splinter and crack under his influence.
Now, this is what I think Dorn will be very good for, 40k, because the Great Rift and just splitting the galaxy in half, yeah. But he will be very good at not just, the demons, and why not? Because the demons are made out of their emotions and such, so he can use that against them, weaken them, or just straight up just making them to vanish. But another thing that would be very important for Dorn is that he could share this level of order to the rest of the Imperium. Throughout the years, the Imperium has gone into constant, like, fuckery all the time. I mean, for example, Doge Vandai, for example, Mr. Pedo himself managed to, conquer everyone and use emotion to gain power, and everyone followed that emotion. The War of the Beast, for example, it needed a null sister, sister of silence, to defeat these, like, I suppose, wannabe Walmart quirks in the War of the Beast. But yeah, it's just throughout every era, there's some sort of bleeding of emotions, and that emotions affect the material, no, not the, yeah, the materium and the warp simultaneously. So with Dorn, not only that he could just bring, absolute order to the Imperium and be more defensive of the warp, but he can also nullify it, helping people to get a better understanding of what true reality is. And so he can just make people just let's not focus all this. Let's just focus one thing. And I think that will be very useful for the Imperium itself. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
And that is where things start getting real interesting for a hypothetical modern day Dorn return. Because if characters like the Lion can develop new abilities like Forest Walk, or if Corvus Corax can evolve into a literal shadow demon bird creature, then it's entirely possible Dorn's own warp-related abilities would evolve as well. And since his ability seems to revolve around his willpower and possibly nullifying the warp, then Dorn has
He will
the
be a good
potential to become,
Green Lantern.
get this, something resembling a Null. Now, I don't mean in the exact same way as, say, the Sisters of Silence.
Yeah, it's not
but
like
more
that.
as a Primarch whose indomitable will actively suppresses and fractures the warp around him. And maybe just like Corvus Corax, Rogal Dorn may be able to control this nullifying area of effect. And if that version of Dorn were to return wielding something like the Emperor's Lightning Claw to, replace his missing hand, a relic potentially comparable to the Emperor's sword or shield, giving him a weapon possesses a hint of the Emperor's power and should be highly effective against Chaos-aligned foes. This would result in Rogal Dorn becoming the perfect weapon against the warp.
Imagine him doing a one punch man finisher. Just charging up and bam, hitting Purdy's face. That would be fucking awesome.
Think about it. Most of the Imperium's strongest enemies rely heavily on warp abilities, corruption,
Oh
fear,
yes,
or reality
100%.
manipulation. Beings like demons, psychers, greater demons, or even the demon Primarchs. So, if Dorn's latent warp abilities truly evolved
They're basically
in the direction
hackers.
hinted at during the Solar War, then he may become the Imperium's greatest weapon against the forces of chaos. I mean, imagine a demon Primarch trying to drown a battlefield in warp energy, only for Dorn's mere presence to suppress and fracture their attempt. Imagine greater demons finding their unnatural forms destabilizing around him. Imagine psychic attacks weakening, reality distortion collapsing, or corruption simply failing to take root, because Dorn's will is so absolute that the warp itself struggles to exist around him. This can make him the greatest threat to his fallen brethren, especially those like Magnus the Red, whose greatest strength is his psychic powers. Physically, Magnus is of course still dangerous. He is a demon Primarch after all, but his mastery over the warp allows him to shatter titans with his mind, manipulate time, space, and reality, and even atomize his fellow Primarchs. But if Dorn could actively suppress or disrupt warp energies around him, suddenly Magnus loses access to the very thing that made him insanely powerful. Meaning, he would have to face Dorn in a strictly physical contest.
Oh,
And we all
he's
saw
gonna
how
win.
Demon Primarch Fulgrim fared against Dorn in Saturn 9. So it's very possible that Dorn could beat the strongest
He's
demon
gonna go
Primarch
Leroy
after all.
Jenkins on him.
And this wouldn't just apply to Magnus either. It could potentially affect all of the demon Primarchs, since they are warp beings. And if Dorn's mere presence actively disrupts the warp around him, then that would mean his traitor brothers would have to fight him in a nerf state. For example, Angron's regeneration and warp field rage would weaken, or Lorgar's psychic powers would become unstable or less effective. Or maybe even
Dude.
Perturabo's unnatural demon durability would begin to diminish.
Start
So
cracking.
if Dorn did indeed return, equipped with a relic from the Emperor's arsenal, most likely the Emperor's Lightning Claw, alongside his prior physical capabilities, which allowed him...
I'm not gonna lie. Imagine that Claw doing the exact same shit as Law from One Piece, and he can just cut through any shit because he can manipulate space. Like, imagine that. That would be fucking awesome. Cutting through reality and shit like that. Almost like Virtual's Yamato Katana. It would be something like that. And before everyone say, no, that's total bullshit, brother, have you read the weapons that these motherfuckers have in Warhammer 40k? So I don't think it's a stretch to think that claw can just straight up cut through the warp itself and instant kill anyone.
to slice up a demon Primarch, and with the addition of his hypothetical anti-warp abilities, then my agenda that Rogal Dorn would be the strongest Primarch if he did return starts sounding like a genuine possibility. Man, oh man, my Bookie's agenda lives on. Let me know down below if you believe in the Rogal Dorn agenda. Is it legitimate, or have I finally inhaled too much Imperial Fist propaganda? A shout out to my Patreon and
Hey,
YouTube members.
be sure to
Bossy
shout out.
Paul, Zy Blinky, Tyler Pick 7, Ritter S, Musty, Keydree,
Musty.
Seth Capizilla, Lag, Coney Karkle, Caleb White, Dinkleberry, and Michael Skipper 7277. If you guys want to support my channel further, I would greatly appreciate you guys subscribing to my Patreon or YouTube members. But, as I always say on this channel, I will never hide anything behind a paywall, because fuck capitalism.
Yeah.
As always, my beloved herd, stay milked, and I'll see you all real soon.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I really like it. Um, I think maybe Rogal Dorn will be the strongest in Warhammer 40k, because it feels like we thought Gilliman was gonna be the strongest because he had the Emperor sword, but more stories come down and see that he's not that strong. Then the lion shows up and he just perform all these feats, and it just makes a clear picture that he is stronger than Gilliman. And it could be possible that GW is going to continue this pattern. Now, Rogal will be very powerful than Lionel Johnson, which now, how would they introduce is my biggest question, because, well, first of all, he's not dead. We only found his hand, and he hasn't been into a coma, or he hasn't slept. This guy has been doing some type of action. Now whatever that action is, we don't know, but what we do know that he was very active all the way to 40k. And what has he been doing is unknown. A lot of people think that he might be leading a crusade alone because of all that shit that happened after Terra, after the the death of the, not death, but the sort of death of the Emperor and the death of Sanguinius, and just seeing his brothers just disappearing one after the other. He might not have a stable mindset, let's just say. But it will be possible that they will make a good story of him regaining that, admiration, that boldness, that unyielding power that he is well known, and he will come back to the Imperium. Now, how they will, show they will do that is quite unknown, really. Maybe they're gonna, let him join with the Lion and Gilliman, because we know those two are gonna meet, and they're gonna team up and try to make the Imperium much more stronger. I mean, he is very well known for the custodian, so I think he will be much better suited for them. But anything else, we really don't know. All we can do is just speculate. But one thing for sure is that when Rogal shows up, he will maintain order, and he will be sure that everything is well defended. Well, guys, that'll be all. Thank you so much for watching. I will leave I talk too much. I will leave the original video in the link in the description down below with the cow himself below, and please hit all those buttons down below if you enjoyed this video. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.